in unum Deum, Patrem omnipotentem, Factorem celi et terrae, visibili omnium, et invisibilium.
Et in unum Dominum Iesum Christum, Filium Dei unigenitum,
Et ex Patre natum, ante omnia saecula,
Deum de Deo, lumen de lumine, Deum verum de Deo verum,
genitum novatum, consubstantialem Patri, per quem omnia facta sunt,
qui propter nos homines, et propter nostram salutem, descendit de celi,
et incarnatus est de Spiritu Sancto, ex Maria Virgine, et homo factus est,
crucifixus etiam pro nobis, sub Pontio Pilato, passus et sepultus
et resurrexit tertia die, secundum Scripturas,
et ascendit in caelum, sedet ad dexteram Patri,
et iterum venturus est cum gloria, judicare vivos et mortuos, coius regni noerit finis,
et in Spiritum Sanctum Dominum, et vivificantem, qui ex Patre Filioque procedit,
qui cum Patre et Filio simur adoratur, et cum glorificatur, qui locutus est per profetas,
et unam sanctam catholicam, et apostolicam ecclesiam,
confiteor unum baptismam in remissionem peccatorum,
et expecto resurrectione mortuorum,
et vitam venturi seculi.
Good evening, dear TV friend, and welcome to yet another exciting edition of Understanding Church History here over DMRO TV of the Diocese of Boya with me, Reverend Father Cletus Aka, your host. History is the foundation of the future. When you understand history, you'll be able to know where you're coming from, of course, where we are going, and the correction of the past will help us better build the future. Of course, the history of the Catholic Church is a very interesting one. the church which is one holy, Catholic and apostolic, built on the foundation of Peter, the solid rock, as established by Jesus Christ at Caesarea Philippi in Matthew chapter 16. You are Peter, meaning rock, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gate of Hades will never prevail. Today we are privileged to have another exciting topic, the martyrdom of St. Lawrence the Deacon. Of course, many people will be asking that a deacon was a martyr or is a martyr in the church. Many people always believe that those who are martyrs are either bishops, priests, or, I don't know, some men of high classes or higher classes. Of course, even lay people are saints, some of which have been canonized and recognized by the church. And if you are a martyr and a saint in the church, that means you died for the sake of Christ. Those who died by shedding their blood for the sake of Christ, they are known as martyrs in the church. So this evening we shall be talking on the martyrdom of St. Lawrence the Deacon. Of course, Lawrence the Deacon, in Latin, Laurentius, was born around AD 225 in Spain. And he was a disciple of Pope Sixtus II. Then he was an archdeacon. He was not a priest, he was a deacon, and of course he died as an archdeacon. I remember while we were still in the early days of the church, we were talking about so many deacons in those days. We had deacons, subdeacons, archdeacons. The distinction was being made on their hairstyles, like the tongue chaw and so on and so forth. So you can see there on your screen, that is St. Lawrence the Deacon, who lived in 225 AD in the early days of the church. He was a disciple of St. Sixtus, Pope Sixtus II. And of course, we are going to look at his life, his martyrdom, and of course, the legacy left behind by St. Lawrence the Deacon. So we are privileged to have with us today our fervent participant and contributor in the place of Mr. Cliff Hour. Welcome, Mr. Cliff Hour.
Thank you for that, Kratos. Good evening, dear TV friends of the MR TV. It's always a pleasure, Father, to be here to look at history with the historical background, and then, of course, with this special dimension that we're looking at, not the secular history, but the history of the church, how the faith has been kept down from generations to generation, and especially in this moment where we are looking at the lives of some people who lend us courage to face certain challenging moments in life. I think the topic today too is quite interesting, and of course I'll be glad to be contributing my own little here in the course of the program.
Yeah, men who gave their life for the sake of Christianity. That is why St. Cyprian of Carthage will tell us that the blood of the martyrs is what? A seat for Christianity. And of course today we read one of my best ever chapters in the Acts of the Apostles, when Paul and Silas were imprisoned. And when they were imprisoned, they didn't curse those who sent them there. They were not lamenting, but yet they were singing and praising God. And Eusebius, the historian, and many others, commenting on that text, says their lifestyle, what they live, what they said, what they were singing, caught the attention of other prisoners. And they asked themselves, what manner of men are these? How can they were in the inner, Mr. Clifford, in the inner portion of the prison, but yet they were not cursing, they were singing and shouting. And as a result of that, the chief jailer was converted. When he got up in the morning and discovered that Paul and Silas were not there, he wanted to kill himself, and immediately Paul says, no, we are here. That same man who locked Paul up, who locked him up in prison, took them by night to his house, washed their wounds, and gave them food, and then asked this fundamental question: what must we do to be safe? That is why we have church history. Church history is to make us ask fundamental questions. Yes. What must we do to be like the martyrs? What must we do to be like the saints? What must we do to go to heaven? That is the essence of church history. And that is why we need to go back to our church fathers, our forebears, those who live good life, those who lived the foundation, they laid the foundation, and of course, they lived exemplary lives for us to emulate. So, Mr. Clifford, let us not divert from our topic of today. We are talking on this great young man, St. Lawrence the Deacon, who was a companion of Pope Sixtus II. who lived in AD 225. And he has so many things as far as his life is concerned that we need to tell our audience today.
Yes, Father, like you rightly said, Lawrence the Deacon was born in 225 in Huesca, Spain, in the 3rd century to be precise, when the Roman emperor had vehemently said they would be persecuting Christians at that time.
Yeah.
And like you rightly called him, you see his persecution is coming in 258, meaning he lived for 33 years.
Yeah.
He lived for 33 years. The age of Jesus Christ is no doubt.
Of course.
So anyways, we must know that. And he grew up in a devout Christian family and felt strong calling to serve the church.
Hey, Ambrose, could you give us the picture of St. Lawrence while we are talking about him?
Both his parents are also considered to have been martyrs, or they were martyred as well. And we must know that as a youth, he is said to have been, he was very brilliant, studying humanities and theology in Zaragoza, where he met the future Pope, his closest friend in life, Pope Sixtus II.
Yeah.
After Lawrence completed his studies, Father, he and the future Pope traveled to Rome.
Yeah.
And in Rome, Lawrence was ordained one of the city's 7 deacons, most likely as the head of the 7 deacons of the Archdeacon of Rome.
Yeah.
And we must know that as the Archdeacon of Rome, he was put in charge of the church's material possession and was responsible for distributing alms to the poor. And by the time Pope Sixtus II was elected Pope in 257 AD, he and Deacon Lawrence were believed to have been of strong friendship, like we have rightly said. That is a summary we can give about his life. We must know that his feast day is celebrated on August 10 every year, and then he has different attributions based on the fact that he died. For instance, he's called patron of comedians, because he made mockery. It was like he made mockery of himself while on the on the fire. And then because he died on the fire, he's also called a saint of the cook or cooks. So we'll also see others in the course of our discussions for the other. So that basically, that's the little we need to know about him, and most importantly, that he died at the age of 33.
Thank you very much. And it's always good, dear TV friend, to go back to the 10 Roman emperors. As I earlier mentioned, that the church that we have today is not what we had before. At the time of Jesus, it was during the time of the Roman Empire. At that time, the Assyrian Empire has fallen into the hands of the Persians. The Persian Empire now later on fell into the hands of the Roman Empire. And of course, in the time of Jesus, we have the Caesar Augustus, who was the Roman emperor. And of course, Pontius Pilatus was the Roman governor sitting there in Jerusalem. And of course, in the time of Jesus, it was Pontius Pilatus who sent Jesus to his early grave at the age of 33. Yes, at Golgotha. So immediately after the death of Jesus Christ, we shortly do not understand how Augustus Caesar died. Eusebius, the historian, didn't mention that. No, Tacitus, those are the great church historians. They didn't mention that. But of course, immediately after him, we have now one of the most cruel emperor, Emperor Nero. Nero ruled from 64 AD. You will see how he will martyr Peter and Paul. And of course, from 64 AD right down to 303, in the course of this persecution, from 64 to 303, this is where we have the martyrdom of St. Lawrence. Because that of St. Lawrence occurred around 225. Then from 64 to 303, where we had the cruel 10 Roman emperors. And Emperor Nero was the first, and then Valerian, Septimius Severus, right down to Diocletian. Diocletian was the last of the cruel Roman emperor who lived from the year 303, and immediately after him now we have now the good emperor, Emperor Constantine. So in the context of this, Mr. Clifford, so who was the emperor at the time of the martyrdom of St. Lawrence?
Yes, Father, I think you are giving a very good analysis there. we must know that at the time of the martyrdom of Saint Lawrence the Deacon, the emperor was Emperor Valerian.
Correct.
And he came to power in AD 253.
That's right.
And when he came to power, we must note he was tolerant with the Christians.
Yes.
Not until 257
Yes.
when he gave the edict that all Christians
Yes.
must be persecuted.
Yeah.
And now this persecution was very fierce. And when we want to look at it, we'll see that Saint Cyril, the then Bishop of Carthage,
Yeah.
North Africa,
Yeah.
who also died a martyr under Valerian, described the persecution in these words. I take it verbatim.
Yeah.
The Emperor Valerian has consigned to Senate a decree which he has determined that all bishops,
Yeah.
priests, deacons will immediately be put to death. I communicate to you that 6 to suffered martyrdom on the 6th of August, together with 4 deacons, while they were in a cemetery. The Roman authorities have established a norm according to which all Christians who have been denounced must be executed and their goods confiscated by the imperial treasury. You get it? That is what Saint Cyril of Carthage will tell us.
Yeah.
And then now we also have people like Januarus, Vicentius,
Yeah.
Magnus, Stephanus,
yes, yeah.
Felicissimus, and Agapitus.
Yeah, those were the 7 deacons.
7 deacons.
Yeah.
At this time. So it was under Valerian. When he came, he was tolerant. But in the course of his reign, 4 years after, he became something else. He turned to something else, and that was when the Deacon Lawrence will face his persecution under him, Father Aka.
Yeah, you will not doubt why he behaved like that, because you look at his predecessors, Septimus Severus and Nero. Nero came with the intention that Christianity must not dominate the Roman gods or the Roman belief, Roman tradition. Because, of course, I mentioned earlier that we had 2 sacred shrines. One was in Constantinople, of course, and the other one was at the center of Rome. We have Zeus. Zeus was the chief of all gods, pagan gods, the Greek gods. Then we have now called Hermes. Hermes was like the herald of the god. So therefore, when Christianity came up, it was like a threat to what they have known all their life. It's just as when you watch most of these Nigerian movies, you discover that when a priest is sent to a village to proclaim the gospel, it is difficult for them to convert from, because of the Ezemo that you have, the native doctor. You see, the people grew up knowing that Ezemo is the highest god, and the god that they worship in the village is the highest god. So if you introduce a new god, the person of Jesus Christ, it will be difficult. You will face challenges. You will face resistance. So therefore, when Christianity came in, it was like a blow to the Roman way of worship. And of course, even the Jews themselves, they did not really believe in Christ. They believe in God, of course, but they didn't see Jesus as God, because according to their connotation, their understanding of a God, El Shaddai, Elohim, Yahweh, God of the mountains. So God could not come down and take human form. It's difficult for the Jews to believe that. That is why they said, according to Matthew will tell us that Jesus gave a sermon on the mount. Meaning that God is on the mountain. We sit down and we listen. But Luke, who was of course a Jew who grew up in diaspora, we said that Jesus gave a sermon on what? On a plain. Everybody was together with Christ. He met the poor. He met the underdogs. He met the women. And that is why in the Gospel of Luke, you will see the row of women.
Yeah.
So correct. You see, it was not. So you are not going to really blame the Roman to that extent, because they had grown up. They have known that their way of worship is the best. Jesus brought a wonderful way of worship. Jesus Christ grew in Judaism. In fact, he worshipped in the synagogue. He preached in the synagogue in Jerusalem, but he stepped out of Judaism and formed a more perfect religion. Let us not go deep into that. Let us come back to St. Lawrence the Deacon, because, of course, it's because of Jesus Christ that Lawrence died. We have seen how he was, in the course of the reign of Valerian, the emperor, that he was martyred. And of course, we are going to look at his martyrdom, and of course, how he died.
Yes, Father. We must note that, like we said, in 253, when Valerian became the Roman emperor, there was that tolerance, that toleration between the Roman city and the Christianity and the Christians and the church.
Yeah.
There was that cordial relationship, and of course, not until 257, where he issued the edict that all Christians must be executed, they must be executed. And so when this came out, the church faced increased scrutiny and danger. He was no longer friends with church authorities because of the clear facts that you have put there. They felt that Christianity was disturbing their ways of worship and lifestyle, was distorting their own religion or manner of worship. And so the Roman authorities targeted the Christian leaders. You begin to see why they were killing these persons. They started targeting the Christian leaders, making sure that none of them survived. And Lawrence Deacon was one of the deacons among those who sought to be apprehended. And so one day the Roman prefect demanded that Lawrence, the deacon, should hand to him all over the church's wealth, which, believing that Christians had accumulated a lot of wealth at that time. Just like we have this mentality, even like now you see the construction of the new church there for Aka in the parish there. I always hear people pass and say, Catholic Church gave money, boy, see one pillar, but they don't know that these monies come from little drops that have been accumulated. So with this backdrop, when the Roman prefect make this demand that Lawrence the deacon brings all the church's treasure, Lawrence only requested that the emperor gives him 3 days to put these treasures together to come and hand to him. Now, after the 3 days, Deacon Lawrence came back again before the prefect, and then he pointed, look at the treasures that he pointed to the Pope, to the prefect. He said, the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the suffering of Rome, saying, these are the treasures of the church. These are the treasures of the church. The poor, the blind, the crippled, the marginalized, the underdogs of Rome, the suffering of Rome, he pointed as the treasures of the church. Don't forget that he was appointed as archdeacon. He was appointed as the one to be giving alms and to take care of those who are suffering. And so this greatly infuriated the prefect, who had anticipated receiving gold and silver. You can imagine the frustration in the mind and the face of this prefect. He ordered that the Deacon Lawrence be burned on a gridiron or gridiron. St. Ambrose recorded that Deacon Lawrence's last act of heroic virtue and defiance of diabolical oppression, he gave it this way. However, after 3 days, he was placed on the gridiron by the tyrant whom he mocked, and he was burnt. He said, the flesh is roasted, turn it and eat. So by the courage of his mind, he overcame the power of fire, Father Aka. We also have instances that when St. Ambrose was recording, he also had the fact that when Pope Sixtus II was being taken to be martyred, he recorded that St. Lawrence wept when he saw his bishop Sixtus let out of his martyrdom. He went not because he was being let out to die, but because he would survive Sixtus. He cried out to him in a loud voice, where are you going to, Father, without your son? Where do you hasten to, Holy Bishop, without your deacon? You cannot offer sacrifice without a minister. And Ambrose also records Pope Sixtus' response to him. I would not leave you. I will not abandon you, my son. More difficult trials are kept for you. A shorter race is set for us who are older. For you who are young, a more glorious triumph overweight tyranny is reserved. Soon you will see. Cry no more. After 3 days, you will follow me. These are the circumstances that led to the arrest and persecution of the Deacon Lawrence. And of course, after 4 days, St. Ambrose records that he was taken to the Gridiron, where he was put on fire, his body roasted, and then he called that this side is done, come and turn it. They turned him, and then it was also used like there was a platform. People came for pleasure to come and see this kind of activities being taken place. And then the worst of it was the fact that they would do this kind of fierce persecution, this execution in the public, because they wanted to scare other Christians not to continue with the act of spreading the gospel, so that by scaring them away, they will make sure that they are able to reduce the rate of Christianity. And of course, the Roman government would have taken full scale of control and show of their authority over the Roman Empire. So that is how Lawrence the Deacon met his end, gave his life for Christ. And like you rightly said, even Tertullian and 2 will say, the blood of the martyrs is the seed for Christianity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cliff. Thank you very much for that explicit discussion on the life of this wonderful St. Lawrence the Deacon. And of course, I just have something here to give it to our audience concerning his martyrdom. And of course, St. Ambrose of Milan, in his book, The Offices, Book 2, that is from pages 137 to 139, says, when the emperor asked Lawrence to bring the treasures of the church, St. Lawrence asked him to give him 3 days. And after 3 days, he brought this group of persons and presented to the emperor. So it was like a mockery to the emperor. You can imagine telling the emperor to wait, that you are going to bring the treasures of the church. Imagine the treasures, gold, silver. Of
course, and he was expecting gold and silver.
Yes. So Lawrence went and brought the poor, the sick, the lame, widows and orphans. Assisted those who assisted him in administering his work and the liturgy, and he said to them, "Here are the treasures of the church." In anger, the emperor ordered that he be tortured. So the deacon was tortured and thrown into fire. And when he was thrown into fire, he said, after a while, that turn the other side. That is the ipsissima verba. Turn the other side. This side is ready. And he was turned. And St. Ambrose of Milan says this showed his true heroism.
Yes.
He's a hero of the church. The great St. Lawrence the Deacon. You can imagine you are in a burning furnace and you ask your captors, your tormentors, to turn the other side, that this side is ready already. All right, what a great, wonderful courage, Mr. Cliff.
Of course.
Ambrose,
of course.
Give us 1 minute break to catch our breath. When we come, we'll continue with the program. That encourage the people, and we do not preach prosperity gospel, we preach Christ crucified, because Christ says, if you want to be my follower, you want to be my disciple, you must pick up your cross and follow me every day. That cross can be for you ill-health, financial worries, a stubborn husband, a wicked wife, and stubborn children. We must not stop. We will keep on working. We keep on working to the last day at the parousia, when Christ will come, or when we will die before that particular day. We preach Christ crucified. St. Lawrence the Deacon witnessed to the gospel message through his blood. And of course, many other martyrs, sisters also. And that is why Pope St. Leo the Great honored him for his courage. Yeah. St. Ambrose of Milan praised Lawrence for his valor and charity. St. Augustine mentions Lawrence in multiple homilies, highlighting his faith and sacrifice. And of course, Pope St. Leo the Great extol his witness and call him a victim of love for Christ. That is the man we are celebrating today, St. Lawrence, the great martyr, a young man who died for the sake of Christ. He brought the poor, the lame, the widows, orphans, those with leprosy, and presented it to Valerian the emperor that these are the treasures of the Catholic Church. And that is why the church says Christ is more closer to the victims than the victors. God is always there. When we think that God is not there with us, that is where He is always there for us and to cater for us. I remember Mr. Clifford, when we launched the Year of Mercy, when Pope Francis wrote the encyclical Misericordia Votus, you see that sign where somebody was carrying somebody on the shoulders, and they said that before you know that, as a witness to show that God is with you, when you are moving where we have mud or sandy area, like at the banks of the shore of the river, sometimes you are seeing four legs. In a particular time, you see but two legs. At that particular moment, when it's hard, God carries you on His shoulders, and He's the one.
Actually belongs to God.
Belongs to God. That is it.
Working at that time.
So we should not be afraid. So we are going to look at a short video of the martyrdom of St. Lawrence. Meanwhile, when we come back, we are going to look at the martyrdom in general and what the take-home message for our viewers. Before then, let me give these few contributions. Good evening, Father. Thank you very much. I never knew that there was a deacon in church who is a martyr. Today, I'm seeing St. Lawrence. Thank you very much. This is Asong Peter from Moyoka. Thank you very much, Asong Peter from Moyoka. Of course, we had a deacon, St. Lawrence, who was a deacon. He wasn't a priest, nor a bishop, nor a pope, but he witnessed with his life. This one says, good evening. The program is interesting. Church history will never ever disappoint us because we learn a lot about our church, especially in the field of church history. This one is coming from Mami Tabinyang Elizabeth. I don't know where you are writing from, Mama, but thank you so much. Church history is so rich that we cannot exhaust it. We cannot exhaust it. Even in the course of 2 years, it is very, very rich. So, JC, please, could you give us that short video?
Welcome to Saints and Feasts of the Catholic Calendar, meeting the greatest men and women who have ever lived. August 10th, St. Lawrence, deacon and martyr, early 3rd century to 258, patron saint of deacons, comics, and cooks. A deacon heads the church for 4 days, then perishes like his fellow deacons. The church's liturgy, like all public rituals, whether sacred or secular, is inherently conservative. Its form is not easily altered. Its content shapes, more than is shaped by, the church and the wider culture. The liturgy moves through time like a great river moves through the land. It plows its own path, carving the terrain, gradually and incontrovertibly forming a new landscape. One generation is too few to notice, but a few generations pass and suddenly a river separates two families, a valley turns into a lake. A dam submerges a city, water destroys what once had been, and the world is different. Feast days and solemnities, most notably Christmas and Easter, shape entire cultures too. Their calendars, music, food, festivals, dress, dance, language, art, architecture, and on and on. There is almost nothing that the liturgy and its calendar do not touch. Liturgy creates worlds. Besides being culture creators, liturgical feast days also preserve the past for the present and the future. A feast day freezes time and preserves the memory of the world's oldest mind, that of the Catholic Church. The Church does not suffer from Alzheimer's disease. She is rejuvenated with every baptism, and so is perpetually young, impervious to the dementia typical of great age. Today's saint, the Deacon Lawrence, is celebrated with a feast on the Church's calendar, not just a memorial or an optional memorial. This liturgical fact is revelatory and beautiful. He was martyred so long, long ago. He is not Christ, Mary, or a pope, yet he has a feast day. What is the past telling us by this? What is the Church's calendar communicating to the faithful by this interesting fact? This feast opens the curtains on the events of August 258 as if they were as fresh as buns right out of the oven. look and see the cast of characters. Emperor Valerian is to the side, sitting on his marble throne. An official reads the emperor's decree aloud. All bishops, priests, and deacons are to be summarily executed. Pope Sixtus II is roughly taken away by Valerian soldiers during Mass in the candlelight of a catacomb on August 6th. 6 of Rome's 7 deacons are killed with Sixtus. In accord with the Church's theology, they were closer to their bishop than to any priest, so they die with him. The Church has been almost decapitated. There is only one deacon left. The hunt is on for Lawrence, the ranking head of the Church. He is found. He is martyred. It is August 10th. The curtain closes. In a tradition already ancient by the 3rd century, Rome had 7 deacons to minister to the material needs of the impoverished widows and orphans of Rome. Lawrence excelled at this task, which he operated out of a house church in central Rome. When the popular and well-loved Lawrence died, he was venerated with a fervor unlike almost any other early martyr. His cult spread like the fire that tradition says roasted him alive. Devotion to him spread as far north as Scandinavia, England, and Germany. Traditions large and small abounded. The details of his martyrdom are incomplete, but holy legends have supplied what documents could not, and none of them are illogical, mythic, or banal. They might contain the essential facts. He was burned alive on a gridiron. Lawrence was buried just outside the walls of ancient Rome, where a minor basilica, also the burial site of Pope Pius IX, still stands. Numerous other churches in Rome are dedicated to his memory, including the house church where he ministered. The current church on the site is, to this day, still enclosed inside of a larger building, just as the house church was. The deacon martyr Lawrence gives a witness so powerful to Rome that his death may have been the no-going-back moment, which proved that Christianity was here to stay forever in the capital of the world. St. Lawrence, may your example inspire all clergy, and especially deacons, to remain close to their bishops and their people, providing faithful witness to the truths of our faith, which are worth living and dying for. Amen.
Our faith, which is worth living and dying for. That is what St. Lawrence the Deacon did. Looking at the life of St. Lawrence the Deacon, I was shivering because of what I saw that young man going through for the sake of Christ. And this calls to mind a question, Mr. Cliff Hour. Is it really necessary in this our time? Is the notion of martyrdom very necessary in our time? Looking at the materialistic world that we live in, the world of enjoyment, the world of all kinds of isms, is it necessary to have martyrs even in this our own time?
Father Aka, I think that's a very pertinent question. Before we look at that, it's good we go back to the origin of Christianity, and most especially this time when we are celebrating Easter, the resurrection of Christ. We must highlight here that the death of Christ did not end in the confines of the grave.
Yeah.
He resurrected. That is a proof. He was buried, he died.
Yeah.
He resurrected. The apostles saw him, they ate with him.
Yeah.
That gave them the hope to go out to preach the gospel. And on Ascension Thursday, Father, Acts chapter 1, verses 1 to 11, go and make disciples of all nations. Now, look at the life of St. Lawrence. It is a yardstick to put in a time of social justice. What social justice means in the contemporary society. Amidst the isms, look at the emperor eating there while that guy is dying, with flames on his body.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire is still in our time.
Yeah.
We still have the underdogs.
Yeah.
We still have the suffering, the marginalized, caused by the Roman government of our time.
Yeah.
So therefore, the Acts of the Apostles continue to tell us that if we are coming out to preach the gospel of Christ, then we must know that there are people who are worried by truth. There are people who prefer darkness to light. And these are the people causing the sufferings of others. So therefore, martyrdom is very relevant as far as there's that notion to achieve social justice in our contemporary, the 21st century society, Father Aka, and even more relevant, especially from the life of the Deacon De Lawrence. So we must say it here with all audacity that it is relevant, no matter how we because those who are so materially attached, those who are full of consumerism, they are doing these things at the expense of some other persons. Some are working, they cannot make a good living for themselves. They will say, man, they walk like elephant, chop like ant. This thing is still practical today. So therefore, the call out to go to preach the gospel is the truth of the resurrection. That truth is the fact that we must treat people with equality. We must treat people like Christ would do for us. We must carry the less privileged on our shoulders, those of us who are up there, like God would do for us when we are weak and weary, so that instead of our weary steps, the stronger steps of these leaders, especially our leaders, should be seen. And why not those at the ground level? Because sometimes we're only looking from that top level. It starts from bottom, because the underground injustice that comes from us down there is terrible. So it is time for each and every person to see how you are contributing to the social injustice that is prevailing in the contemporary society, and then try to make an amends. If they are selling this thing for 2,000 francs for the Aka, that you go and buy for 1,000 or 800 francs, why can you not come and sell it for 1,000 francs or 1,200? Because everybody is selling for 2,000. You too, you come and sell for 2,000. But then, who is fooling who? So that's just the society we are living in. We keep on accusing fingers here and there, but we need to sit to and check ourselves. And then that is a witnessing that Christ is calling us, especially in this period of Easter and the rest of the days as Christians, to know that we must act in the way Christ would act if he were in that situation, Father.
Thank you so much. I think, Mr. Clifford, it is necessary to have martyrdom, as you are saying. And we have some examples of martyrs in our present time. I remember with the escalation of the sociopolitical crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions, many priests have been killed.
Of course.
Many pastors have been killed. Many men of God have been killed. I think that's the act of martyrdom. If you go to those places that has been deployed, is deeply rooted with the sociopolitical crisis. You go like a Kata, you go like Bafia, you go like Munyenge. We have priests there. Even though other churches, they have run away, the pastors are no longer there, but we still have the priests. They are there working. And the Bishop of Boya is going there. He doesn't care what will happen. I think those are acts of martyrdom. Those who died. In fact, we have so many kinds of martyrdom. When we're talking about, we have white martyrdom, we have red martyrdom, and of course we have yellow martyrdom. So it's not all about shedding of blood that we will call it martyrdom. So I think the great sacrifices that the priests are carrying out in those deployed areas, in those areas deeply rooted and eaten by the sociopolitical upheavals, I think those are signs of worship, and of course of signs of the existence and prevalence of the church. And of course, Mr. Clifford, you see again the life of Lawrence the Deacon, that despite the challenges he went through, despite the torture, he never ever complained. He didn't complain at all. He was instead praying to God and asking God to forgive his tormentors. And you see, he was being taken to the arena, to the Colosseum. Those are the places where martyrs were being killed. You see that of Perpetua and Felicitas, we did sometimes back ago. And then we saw how the emperor will sit at the arena, is entertaining the guests with the death of martyrs. You can see that of Lawrence there. Jesse, could you bring that video again? You see the emperor. The emperor is there eating and drinking. Meanwhile, the Lawrence is there being put into the flame. You can see. You see Lawrence being put in the flame, and the emperor is there. Okay, it's fine. So you see how it is. So it's just, look at it. That is it there. Correct, that is it. You can bring that again. You see, it's very clear there. The emperor is there eating, and that is Lawrence being tortured by those soldiers. And of course, he is bearing testimony and witness to Christ. That is him in the fire. Very soon, you ask them to turn the other side. The other side is okay. Those are grace. exceptional grace from God. They say grace means participation in the life of God.
God.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Thank you very much for that. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 1997, says grace means participation in the life of God. Those people participated in the life of God. And I think that grace is not only seen in acts like this. We have prevenient grace. Before you carry any act of good work, it is being asked, it is being pushed by God. And the Bible says, there's no one day that you ever do something that is good that is coming from you. It is from God. It's from the Holy Spirit that inspires us to do so. So I think that we still need a great man like Lawrence in our time to bear full witness to the gospel message, and of course at the point of even giving their lives up for the sake of such. And of course you see Bishop Michael Bibi, you see him going to Moyoka Deanery, which is feared by some people. Now we have a transfer coming up. Many people will be afraid to go that way because I don't know. But I think you see the shepherd himself going there all the time to meet the people there. Gives courage. You see him on the bike. He doesn't care what will happen to him. He doesn't care what will happen. They are shooting, but you see him going to meet the flock, and you see the joy in the minds, in the hearts of the people. That's a shepherd who smells like the sheep. Pope Francis will say that all the time. So I think your last word for our viewers, Mr. Clever One.
Yes, Father Aka. I think the life of Deacon Lawrence is a great inspiration. And like we heard from the commentary there, he was the leader of the church just for 4 days, and then followed his master, Pope Sixtus II. And then we must know that in those 4 days, there are still relevant documents in the church that were hidden by him, that survive up to date. And that is why I will say he's also mentioned as the patron of archivists and librarians.
Yes.
Well, with this
Father Armstrong D.
down there.
So Father Armstrong D, if you are watching us, this is your patron
This
saint.
is your patron saint.
Yes. So
when I was going through this script, I remember Father Armstrong D. I said, wow.
That
so
man, he knows how to keep things there. Father Armstrong, no, he's gifted in that.
So Father, kudos, your patron saint is right behind you.
Yeah.
That work did not come to you by man, but by the Spirit. That showed that you are supposed to be doing this work. And of course, Father Aka, I think the life of Deacon Lawrence will continue to inspire us. We must know that in our times, you have rightly said, martyrdom does not mean that your blood goes down.
Yeah.
There are other forms that you can penetrate or portray your martyrdom. And then we must also see that from the apostles, the apostolic fathers, we saw the way the Christians were fervent when persecuted. They would readily give themselves. And we have also established that persecution, martyrdom is persecution made visible, or martyrdom is faith made visible in times of persecution. Faith made visible in times of persecution, which Deacon Lawrence and the others that we have examined also proved this point today. And we must also affirm with Tertullian that the more people gave their lives, poured their blood for the sake of the faith, for the sake of the of Christ, it gave more reasons for people to believe, and more people for people to be strengthened, and expanded the church and the Christians' willingness to die for their faith, to lead others to conversion. That is why Christianity is in our doorsteps today. Christianity is in our doorsteps today when we stand for the truth. As I say, sometimes let your life be the only Bible that some people will have to read. This is a form of martyrdom, meaning that when you talk, when you act, people should be able to see Christ in your lifestyle, no matter the human tendencies. So I think, in fact, Deacon Lawrence continue to lend us courage and know that Christ is never far from us. He's always there to strengthen us, because it's also accounted that the courage that he showed was from God, like you rightly said, was the grace of God that gave him that courage to undergo that persecution. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cliff Howard. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, we should know that we always have Understanding Church History every Tuesday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And of course, the rebroadcast will be on Saturday at exactly 2 p.m. So if you are not here or you're just tuning in, you are late already. We are leaving the studio. And of course, DMRO TV is always there to give us wonderful programs and educative and religious programs. And of course, I wish all of you a happy Ascension Thursday. Jesus is going back to the Father on Thursday, because he says, if I do not go, the Paraclete, the great Comforter, will not come. And of course, on Friday, we begin with the novena to the Holy Spirit. So therefore, we enjoin all the Christians all over the world, all our viewers, all Catholics, to prepare for this novena in preparation to receive the infusion of the Holy Spirit come Pentecost Sunday. And of course, this coming Sunday, we are celebrating a wonderful Mass. Bishop Michael Miabusu Bibi, Bishop of the Diocese of Boya, will be celebrating Mass in St. John of God Parish, Bonadikombo, there in my 4 with all the journalists, because it's our day. We are celebrating our, of course, media day, and all the journalists of DMRO TV are expected to be for that Mass there in my 4 in Limbe. And of course, some of us will be having Masses to celebrate in our various parishes. Immediately after that, we are going to join the Bishop in my 4 to celebrate this wonderful day. So all the parish news reporters are invited for that particular Mass there in my 4, and the principal celebrant will be, of course, His Lordship Bishop Michael Bibi, Bishop of the Diocese of Boya. So thank you so much for watching us. Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for choosing DMRO TV as your best and wonderful station. Stay tuned, because we have better programs ahead. Have a wonderful night, and God bless you.
Credo in unum Deum, Patrem omnipotentem, Factorem celi et terrae, visibili omnium, et invisibilium.
Et in unum Dominum Iesum Christum, Filium Dei unigenitum,
Et ex Patre natum, ante omnia saecula.
Neum de Deo, lumen de lumine, Neo verum de Neo verum,
Genitum novatum, consubstantialem Patri, per quem omnia facta sunt,
qui propter nos homines, et propter nostram salutem, descendit celi,
et incarnatus est de Spiritu Sancto, ex Maria Virgine, et homo factus est,
crucifixus etiam pro nobis, sub Pontium Pilato, passus et sepultus est.
et resurrexit tertia